So every year before the season starts, I do a power rankings. It's not really meant to be taken that seriously. It's just with the idea of, well, all right, this is where we may be. And so what I've done is I've got the power rankings I did in October here. And I've made adjustments. I've made adjustments based on some injuries, based on some teams that I'm like, nah, they'll probably be higher than that. And just based on the fact that now we know it's only divisional matchups. And I think that's going to favor some teams. It may hurt others. And we'll see. We'll see where everything ends up. And then down here, I've got the standings from last season, which are done by points. So I decided, okay, I could do it by winning percentage, or I'm going to just do it straight by points, which I know when the winning percentage thing was used to decide it, there were some people who didn't like it, because a team that had less points than their team did might have got a better winning percentage because they played fewer games. And so there were some that were upset. And I understood that at the time. I thought, well, the NHL has to have a dividing line somehow. They went with winning percentage, but I understood the upset. So we only got 31. I'm not putting Seattle on the board, I promise. Seattle will show up on the main board. And there won't be a power rankings this coming week. So next Saturday, there won't be a power rankings. I'll do something else. But the Saturday after that, there will be a power rankings. I'll start it in week 2. Because at that point, we should have enough games to have an idea of where teams are at in their division. So we'll probably just have the divisional power rankings for the first couple of weeks, and then we'll get into a top 31. We'll figure out where we're at from there. Number 31 is Detroit. Detroit last year was 17-49-5. This is not a matter of Detroit still being awful. I think they're going to win at a better clip than that this year, but it's when you're that far behind everybody else. It is difficult to bridge that gap. And while I like what Detroit's done in the offseason, and I love some of the kids they have coming up, I think some of these young players that are coming up for Detroit, I think things are going to turn around for them, but not this season. This isn't the year. And for Yzerman, I think he'd be okay with the team maybe getting the number 1 draft pick this year, grabbing Owen Power, maybe Luke Hughes, this kind of thing. At least get a defenseman, right? So we'll see. Maybe Beniers ends up being one of the top guys too. Detroit have at 31. 30, Chicago. So, first update, Chicago drops from 27 to 30, which is what happens when you lose Kirby Dach for the season. And then Jonathan Toews is out with an illness too, so he's not starting the season with the team. The center spot is gutted. Chicago, I think, is in for a long season. Now, Chicago last year, 32, 30, and 8. So, while they ended up in the play-in round, they did not have a great regular season. And I don't foresee a great regular season for them this year. And I don't think it's going to make any Chicago fans upset for me to say that. Number 29, moving up one spot from where I had them in October, is San Jose. And it comes down to that argument. So San Jose last year, 29, 36, and 5. They had a good month and a half in there during the season, but their goaltending was inconsistent. There were health issues going on with their blue line. And it just didn't click. And I know that the odds of them suffering through the same amount of injuries that they had last year are it's not likely. But I don't see San Jose as being a playoff team this year. They can prove me wrong. Just like last year I thought they would be a playoff team and then whoops. But so San Jose, we'll see whether or not they bounce back this year. Number 28, and this is moving up one spot from where I had them in October, and that's Arizona. So, some of these teams didn't move a lot. And Arizona moves up to 28. Last year, they were 33, 29, and 8, which means technically they're above 500. Now, 500 means you have more wins than regulation losses. But you still may lose more games than you won. So, it's that fake 500 we call it in the NHL. Some people don't like it when I call it that, even though there are many in media that call it that. And there are fans that call it that, but anyways, Arizona, I see them having some problems this year. Can Kemper stay healthy? Can they continue to grind it out when they don't really have the offense? Part of the mirage with Arizona was that they did knock out Nashville. They did get into the round of 16, where they then lost against Colorado. 27, I have Anaheim. So they dropped one spot from where I had them last time. Anaheim last year, 29, 33, and 9. And I think it's another rebuilding year for them. I didn't drop them down because I've changed my mind about where they are. There's a team that I feel has got enough good young talent, and I think they've done enough to maybe surprise some people this year with how much better they are. The problem is they're still probably going to finish last in their division. But it's interesting because now I've got Anaheim, Arizona, and San Jose here. Now it's an 8-team division. That's 3 teams right there for the West. And we've got two central teams here, meaning I have the East and the North with nobody in the bottom five. That obviously is going to change, but to start the season, I have Anaheim here. I think Gibson can steal them some games. Maybe they end up moving up, but for now I have them at 27th. 26th, New Jersey. So the first team in the East ends up showing up. New Jersey last year was 28, 29, and 12, and the record got better after the Taylor Hall trade. For New Jersey, I had them at 25 last time. I dropped them one spot down to 26 this time around. So for New Jersey, I think, yeah, this is probably going to be another long season. Losing Crawford, who knows how much Crawford was going to play, how effective he would have been in New Jersey. But it is a drawback in that his experience would have been a good mentor to Blackwood, and maybe he can stick around in some kind of a mentor role. Like maybe if he feels like he doesn't have much to give to hockey on the ice, maybe he can help the kid out a little bit as well. We'll see if there's anything going on with that over the next couple of months. But New Jersey, they're in a tough spot, and they don't have Bratt signed, and it could be another long season. So 25, moving up 3 spots from where I had them last time, is Ottawa. Now, Ottawa was second to last in the standings with a 25, 34, and 12 record. But I think Ottawa is going to be better this year, and I think Ottawa is going to, with the addition of Stützle, with it looks like Norris is coming up, Logan Brown's coming up. You got to think Brandstrom's going to be a regular this year. They should at least be interesting. And with Matt Murray in net, that gives them a starter that they feel will be an upgrade over Nilsson and Anderson from last year. And then you have Högberg there as the backup, with Nilsson's contract now moved to Tampa and him announcing he's not playing this year. Well, Tampa announced for him he wasn't playing this year. I think Ottawa, they're clawing their way back up. This may be another long season, but 21-22 may be a much better season for them. 24, and same spot they were in last time as LA. So I haven't moved LA up or down. They're 29, 35, and 6 last year. Of course, they missed the play-in round. Everybody down here did except Chicago and Arizona, so I haven't really made any big moves. I do think LA could move up, but that's a lot of youth. So they can move up, they can get better, but it's going to rely on a lot of the young kids coming through and playing well, and we'll see. We'll see where they end up. But again, this is still the West, so we're going to end up with some teams in the West having pretty good records that people will look at and say, well, yeah, that's a good record, but who have they played? And so when we get to playoff time, if that's your representative from the West, how good are they? Do they end up with a number 1 seed? Because of this is where it's going to get interesting. The semifinals are supposed to be seeded 1 through 4 based on the record during the regular season. You could see a team with an easier division having home ice in the semifinals against a team that might be better but played in a much more difficult division. Can't wait for that debate to start. So yeah, I have the Kings in 24th. 23rd, and moving down 1 spot from where I had them last time, is Florida. Florida I dropped down to 23. They were 35, 26, and 8. I talked about this in the video where I had them as the team I most want to watch in the Central. This is why. They have a good roster. Everything looks good on paper, but I know that when they take the ice, they always seem to be less than the sum of their parts. And I can't have them higher than 23rd, but I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong here, and I kind of want to be wrong here. I kind of want LA to be better than this here. And during the season, that'll be part of the debate. Will be, let's say LA gets on a 6-game winning streak, and they've played 4 against Anaheim and 2 against San Jose. That's where we'll start having the debate of, are they really good, or is it the teams they're playing against? And for Florida, being in the Central, we'll see how things go for them. But, I kind of expect them to struggle. Number 22, moving up 1 spot from where I had them the last time I did one of these, which is Buffalo. Buffalo's overall record ended up being 30, 31, and 8. And Jack Eichel didn't really hide his feelings about how upset he was over the way things were. And Buffalo has made some additions, and they look much better, which is why I think by the end of the season, I think I had Buffalo down at, 27th or 28th? 22nd is much better in the overall standings than where I had them before. But we'll see. We'll see where things end up for them. I switched these two. I thought, you know what? I kind of like what Buffalo's got going on, and I know Florida tends to underachieve. You know, I'll put Buffalo one spot higher. Number 21. I also dropped Minnesota down 1 spot. Minnesota had a record of 35, 27, and 7. They were getting better as the season went along. At the time of the pause, they looked pretty good, and then they lost against Vancouver, which I think overshadowed the fact that they were getting better. Then they made moves in the offseason which are bewildering. Everything Bill Guerin did, I hope it works out. But some bewildering moves there by Bill Guerin. And if they work out, he's going to look like a genius. And if they don't, well, we'll see what happens. But he decided I'm going to just change the centers. And I'm going to make changes up front. And these are going to be interesting moves. If Marco Rossi turns out to be a steal at that draft spot, as I think he might be, he may end up looking pretty smart anyways, because Rossi may get himself a spot in this lineup. So we'll see. Number 20, and dropping one spot from where I had him last time, is Nashville. Nashville had a record of 35, 26, and 8, which is the same as what Florida had. But because Nashville was in the West, they actually had a higher seeding than Florida did in the East, which is definitely a conversation we had last year a lot, which was the East was more difficult than the West. Now for Nashville, being in the Central Division, we'll see how things go for them this year. Again, they ended up 35, 26, and 8, and they've been regressing the last couple of years. They're going to look to turn that around. Again, I have them outside of the top 16. We'll see where they end up at the end of the year. But that's Central, 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 and Central. So, and this, Central. So, again, I'm admitting some of these divisions definitely, to me, look stronger than others. And so, during the season, there might be a mirage or two out there, and there might be a team we're completely panicking about, and a GM might be dumping guys off that is just because they're in a really tough division. Number 19, moving up 2 spots from where I had him last time, is the Rangers. I like the addition of Lafreniere. I like where they have him in the lineup. I think that this is a very good team. I think that as long as the goaltending holds, and it should, Shesterkin and Georgiev should be good. I have the Rangers at 19. They ended up with a record of 37, 28, and 5, and one of the most entertaining teams to watch in the NHL. So if there's a whole bunch of games on and there's not a team you really cheer for that's on, and you're like, I don't know, what should I watch? I would recommend any game the Rangers are in. Just throwing that out there. But I have them at 19th on the overall power rankings. At 18th, taking a major dive from 10th, because I just, looking at Dallas and the loss of Sagan and Bishop, and I other things around this team, and I don't know. And then the, 6 positive tests, and now their games are slid back. And we don't know which players yet tested positive. It could be anybody. Could be all the goaltenders. Could be, Ben and Radulov and everybody. We just don't know. But pushing that season back and compressing an already compressed schedule even further, not a good start. They were 37, 24, and 8 last year. They were both the best of times and worst of times, depended on which part of the season you were watching. We'll see how Dallas does this year, but I'm not overly confident in Dallas right now. Number 17, Winnipeg. Now Winnipeg I had last time out at 17 as well. Winnipeg ended up with a record of 37, 28, and 6. They had a solid record, but their winning percentage ended up dropping them down a little bit. Winnipeg, I still have concerns with that blue line, and I know it's a broken record. I know it is. Ville Heinola may come in, solidify that blue line, and it may be a great strength after. We know Hellebuck's going to win them games. We know that they're going to be able to score a bunch of goals. I really like the Jets. I want the Jets to end up proving me wrong and being much higher than this by the end of the season. That would make me very happy. It would also make my wife very happy, and that's also a good thing. So number 17 is the Jets, but yes, if I'm wrong about this, I'll be a happy camper. Number 16, Columbus. Now, Columbus, last time out, I had them at 18th. But with Tortorella behind the bench and with Dubois now dealt with, kind of, right, and Domi and all that, I'll say, you know what? I'll put them at 16th. We'll see. Cross your fingers. They ended up with a 33, 22, and 15 record. Overtime losses, they abused those overtime loss points last season. It really juiced their record. And, when you lose that many in overtime and shootouts, it hides the fact you only won 33 games. As an example, Chicago won 32, Arizona won 33, Minnesota, Nashville, Florida all won 35, Buffalo won 30. So, in terms of games they won, Columbus had their struggles last year, and we'll see where they're at. But again, Central. There's a lot of Central in this bottom 2 rows. Number 15, Vancouver. So Vancouver was 15 the last time I did this. They're 15 now. I like the moves they made. I do. But keep in mind that Vancouver at the time of the pause was 36, 27, and 6. They were descending from the playoffs. Yes, that was while they didn't have Markstrom. Now they don't have Markstrom. So we'll see, right? We'll see if things are better. Nate Schmidt should help. Absolutely should help on the back end. I know that people are upset that Tanev's gone, but I think Schmidt is an upgrade over Tanev. They're completely different defensemen. And I'm glad Hoaglander's in the lineup. I'm not overly upset about Toffoli being out because during that playoff run, they didn't really rely on Toffoli. So if Toffoli had been a major part of that, I'd be nervous, but I'm not overly nervous. So what that means is that for the Canadian teams, I've got these three right now as the bottom three on the power rankings. And again, this season's going to be really tough to figure out. At 14, I have Montreal. Now, Montreal, last time I did this, I had them at 12th. Montreal ended up with a record of 31, 31, and 9. In order to get this record, Kotkaniemi and Suzuki have to show that what we saw of them in the playoffs was for real. Also, Carey Price has to show that what we saw in the playoffs was that he was back and that he's still back. We also need to see a lot less 2-on-1s and 3-on-2s against Montreal. It was embarrassing last year. Just embarrassing. It was, like the coach kicking the garbage can level of embarrassing. If you know, you know. Number 13, I put Pittsburgh at 13. They moved from 16 to 13. I will never write off the Penguins. It's not something I do. The Penguins ended up with a record of 40, 23, and 6. They were very good during the regular season. I know they lost to Montreal in the play-in round, but during a regular season, I still think Pittsburgh is going to be in the mix. I think they're going to give teams a headache. It's going to depend a lot on Crosby staying healthy, and of course Malkin staying healthy is always tricky in any season. But if those guys are healthy and with the wings that they've got now, if Kapanen does turn out to be a really good investment, there's no reason to think Pittsburgh won't be one of the better teams in the league this year. Number 12, Calgary. Calgary dropped from 7 to 12. And it's that question of the bounce back. So Calgary at the time of the pause was 36, 27, and 7. And I don't think that this necessarily shows you an accurate picture. Keep in mind this is 6. So this is 17th in the league. I have them at 12th on the power rankings. I had them at 7 because of the additions, but I've made an adjustment because I think for Calgary, well, it's going to be an interesting year. With all these new players in the lineup, we don't know how they're going to gel. We don't know how this is going to go. We know scrimmages. We know scrimmages have happened, and Steve Dangle's been very very excited about the scrimmage for the Leafs. I don't blame him. I don't blame him because it's easy to get excited with scrimmages and playing against your own team and that oh, this guy looks great. Nick Robertson might look great, but until they're against another team that doesn't care whether or not they put somebody through the wall, it's hard to tell who's going to make it and who isn't. So for Calgary, they've got all these new guys. We'll see in a real game against another team how much chemistry they have. Number 11, Edmonton. So Edmonton, I had at 13. I've moved them up to 11 because, again, I think with McDavid and Draisaitl down the middle, I think the addition of Turris, I think having him playing with Puljujarvi is a really smart idea. That power play was great. If they can score more goals 5-on-5, and they should be able to with the additions they've made, the Oilers should be pretty good. The Oilers, keep in mind, had a 37, 25, and 9 record. So they had a solid record. They were up and down during the season, but at the end of it, they were actually ahead of Dallas. They were 1 point ahead of Dallas, but they were percentage points behind Dallas when it came to the overall winning percentage. So Dallas ends up getting a bye. They end up getting into that round robin, and Edmonton had to play Chicago. So that was a major advantage for Dallas that Edmonton didn't have because Edmonton played more games. So I know that was a tough pill for Edmonton to swallow, and I'm saying, you know what? I'll put Edmonton ahead of Dallas at this stage with the losses for Dallas and what Edmonton's been able to do. Number 10, dropping from 6, where I had them in October, I have the Capitals. The Capitals were 41, 20, and 8. Much like Pittsburgh, they're always in the mix. They're always pretty good. We'll see whether or not this is a year that they fall off because there's some expectation that Washington and Pittsburgh, there could be some erosion of where they are in the standings. But we'll see. If Samsonov is as good as advertised, and last season he looked really good to the point where it's like, okay, so Holtby can go. If he's that good and if Vanacek can play the backup role, because of course Lundqvist went there, what is it with veteran goalies going to new teams and then not playing for them? But with Lundqvist, of course I'm mentioning Crawford there as well, But with Lundqvist not being able to play this year and Vanacek's the backup, that's going to be, I think, a big factor in how well Washington does. And they're saying all the right things. They have faith in him. As they said a couple years ago when it came to Phoenix Copley, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Number 9, Boston. So Boston was number 11 the last time out. I have them at 9 because Marchand's not missing any time and Pasternak is ahead of where he's supposed to be in his recovery. I still don't have them at 1 where they were last year. They were 44, 14, and 12. Again, they abused that loser point too. But Boston is still in the mix. They're still really good. And the question mark I have with them, why they've dropped them down to 9th, is the defense. Is the defense going to be good enough? Are we going to see seasons from guys like Lauzon and Grzelcyk that will make up for the losses? Is Kevin Miller really going to be able to play enough? Is he going to be at least as good as Chara was last year for Boston? And I know people complained about Chara a lot. The same people that complained when Boston didn't bring him back. Really funny. But, you know, is he going to be able to replace those minutes? Can John Moore get his game back? There's a lot of questions there. And without them, I have to have them a little lower. Number 8, same spot they were last time, Carolina. So for Carolina, they ended up with a record of 38, 25, and 5. Very solid record. Very fun team. Fast. Explosive offense. And though they'll miss Williams this year unless he decides to come back again, which he hasn't completely ruled out. So I'm not coming back. This is it. I'm done. And then he retires after the playoffs. Don't end up going very far. But I thought, you know, that probably isn't going to satisfy him. So there's still a chance Williams comes back and plays for them again. I would not be surprised. I'd be kind of surprised if he didn't, to be honest. Number 7, getting into the top row, I've dropped the Islanders from 5 to 7. The Islanders had a record of 35, 23, and 10 last year. They looked fantastic and then not as fantastic. Really good in the playoffs. I'm going to go ahead and say they'll still be good enough to be top row. But again, you know, they did have their struggles at times during the season. We'll see how Sorokin does for them. One of the 3 Russian goalies will be keeping an eye on the 3 who should be pretty darn good in the Eastern Division. And I do like the Islanders' chances. I may be dramatically overrating the Islanders. Makes sense since I dramatically underrated the Islanders last year, so why not overrate them this year? Come on, internet comment section. Number 6, moving up from 14, is Toronto. Why? Because they're only going to play teams in Canada. Toronto is not going to be playing Boston. They're not going to play Pittsburgh. They're not going to play Washington. They're not going to play teams or Tampa. They're not going to have to worry about teams outside of Canada. And I think that, I don't know, Toronto has a certain level of comfort against other Canadian teams, and I think it could be a very good year for them. Plus, the additions they've had look pretty good, and I like some of the line decisions Sheldon Keefe's making, and I don't know, Toronto looks like a solid lineup. Part of what's going to decide whether or not they're able to stay here is the play of their goaltenders, and I mean both. And I like both goaltenders, so I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt on that one, and I have made a dramatic move to push them up into the top row. Which does not mean that when the regular season starts, there couldn't be a precipitous drop at some point. But when I think about it, I like their chances against Ottawa, Montreal, Vancouver. See, and this is how it works. So I like their chances against most of these teams. The Oilers, the Flames, and the Jets, just by their offense, it could be really interesting to see how much we see in the way of goals when those teams meet the Leafs. But that could be a fun video to do before the season starts too. Is matchups that could produce a lot of goals, right? But yeah, so this is going to be a fun one. I'll definitely talk about rivalries too before the season starts and where we could see brand new ones crop up and old ones come back. Looking at like Toronto and Edmonton is a good example of that, where they've been rivals before. Not for a long time, but they've been rivals before. Number 5, Philly. Philly drops from 1 spot from number 4 to number 5. And honestly, I do see them as contenders. I don't know if Philly's patience is wearing thin on any level. If Philly fans maybe just don't believe they're going to end up getting a Stanley Cup at some point, you guys can let me know in the comment section below. But I think that all this patience and all this time, 45 years? It's been a long time. And so at some point, I do think Philly ends that drought. I don't think it's this year, but stranger things have happened. Look, we're only playing inside our divisions, right? This is the only time you're going to see the 31 teams on this board like this for the next at least 2 weeks. And of course, people in the comment section will say it's way too early at 2 weeks to do power rankings. You can't do that, but it's a fun thing to talk about. I enjoy doing these on Saturday nights. I do. Number 4, Vegas. So I've dropped Vegas from 1 to 4. I have concerns when it comes to Vegas with cohesion in that locker room. And I mean, I always take it with a grain of salt when I hear this and that and rumors of this and rumors of that. But there might be some truth to some of it. And if there is, I don't know if there's any residual issue in that locker room that might, I don't know. I really don't. But there's enough uncertainty for me with Vegas that, and Vegas had a record of 39, 24, and 8 last year, which by their standards is not fantastic. Like, seriously, I know that's 15 games above that 500 mark, but they won 39 out of 71 games. There's some erosion there, and it's there. And so the question becomes one of, are we overrating Vegas? Maybe looking at Pietrangelo coming in and not looking at, and this is an issue I talked about last season, which was, so they've gone away from the Golden Misfits, which, fine, okay. But are they creating a team that's more talented and yet won't have that same level of playoff success? And that's a question that I've had with Vegas for a while now. Where are they going to always be looking for that next hired gun? Like, for instance, if Vegas falls short this year, does that mean they go out in the offseason and they look for another hired gun and they trade somebody else out? And at some point, players aren't going to like it. Because if you sign a contract with Vegas that's maybe less money than you might have got somewhere else, because, yeah, I like it in Vegas, so you give them a deal, right? And then a year later, they trade you, well, the next guy might not give him a deal, because he's like, well, you gave him a deal and then you traded him. He gave you guys a deal, and you traded him. So, I want my full value. So we'll see. Number 3, I have St. Louis. Now, St. Louis I had at 9. I have them at 3. I love that they brought in Hoffman. I think Hoffman's what they needed. Part of the reason I had them down at 9 is because I was like, all right, so without Tarasenko, where the goal's going to come from, Hoffman helps fix that problem. I think that, and think about it, if/when Tarasenko returns, you're good. And then I was even looking back, and people got mad that I wasn't protecting Tarasenko in the expansion draft. Well, if Tarasenko doesn't play enough games this year, they don't have to protect him anyways. That's that whole narrative that we haven't even got into, which is they may not have to protect him. If he misses a certain amount of games, then they'd be like, hey, career-threatening injury. We don't have to protect him. And he wouldn't be eligible to be picked by Seattle. So we'll see. And then all the conspiracy theories come out, right? Like, oh, they didn't have to protect Tarasenko. Now he's fine for the playoffs. Interesting. The same conspiracy we'll hear for Tampa, who I have at 2. I had Tampa at 2 last time. I still think even without Kucherov, even with the trades they've made, while I think those trades have helped a team like Ottawa down here move up, adding Coburn and adding Paquette, I think are nice additions. Tampa is still going to be very good. Regular season, they should still be excellent. And the only team that I see being ahead of them is Colorado. The Stanley Cup Finals, people are basically, the favorites are that it'll be Colorado and Tampa. So with Stamkos filling in for Kucherov, and with Colorado just having such a fantastic roster, and you look, last year, Tampa Bay had a record of 43-21-6. Colorado had a record of 42-20-8. And Colorado had that record despite injuries. This is going to depend on the team staying relatively healthy for this 56-game squashed schedule. If they can do that, Colorado can win the Stanley Cup this year. So there you go. Colorado moves from 3 to 1. Tampa stays at 2. St. Louis makes a huge move up, and Vegas drops from 1 to 4. But if you're going to ask me, well, who do you think are Stanley Cup contenders this year? Where would you draw that line? For me, it's probably right there. That to me is probably, I would say the top 5 teams are probably your Stanley Cup contenders. But we'll see. So there you go. Last power rankings before the season starts. And I'm hoping these are completely wrong. Because it's much more fun when everything is completely up in the air. Everything's unpredictable. That way reviews and previews get more views. And people come in here and tell me, look where you were wrong. And my answer is, cool. I was wrong. Good. Because I don't like things that are predictable. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know who do you think are going to be the top 5 teams in the league this year. And again, with the divisional matchups being the only way that we have wins and losses, there's going to be some teams with deceptively great or deceptively poor records. Which teams do you think are going to get hurt the most in this? And which teams do you think are going to get helped the most in this? I may do a video on that as well before the season starts. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support, and thank you guys as well for helping me cross the 173,000 subscriber threshold today. I appreciate it, and if you haven't already subscribed, please do. I will talk to you again soon.